On today's show, the NBA trade deadline came and went. Did anything change in the NBA? What happened? Who made the best deals? Was it the Knicks with Bogdanovic? Was it the Mavericks with their 2 deals? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, every trade deadline coming at you. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On NBA your first listen today. Honestly, it's probably not your first listen today because Locked On NBA earlier today was your first listen today, but that's okay. And it was me. So you're back with me again.
Wow. Just a lot of Nick in your life.
There's way too much Nick here. Thanks for making us your first listen, though. Where the best way you can help us grow the show is to like the video, comment below, write a 5-star review for us, and keep listening every single day. Tony East and I will be back in case you needed more of me. I'll be back later today talking about the games of the day. But today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for first deposit match up to $100. And joining me, actually, I'm joining him today. From Locked On Heat, what you got for me, Wes Golberg?
Oh my gosh, not much in the Miami market here, but there's some interesting things from the trade deadline to talk about. Excited to do it.
You got Scary Terry earlier. You did a move.
Yeah, but you know that's old news. What was that, like 2 seasons ago?
He's already like washed now, right?
Right. We're like, oh, we haven't made a move in forever.
We already done it. He's already gone through the cycle.
Yeah.
We'll talk about all the moves. We'll talk about a bunch of moves that were made today. We'll go back and forth. What'd you think about this guy? What'd you think about this guy? What'd you think about the Jazz move? What'd you think about this? The Sixers with Buddy Hield. We'll talk about that. But we'll get into some of the Mavericks moves as well. Gordon Hayward on the Thunder. That's kind of interesting. They sort of like had their cake and ate it too with that move. We'll also do power rankings as we do every week here on Friday on Locked On NBA, where we'll do the teams that are most disappointed, the fan bases that are most disappointed in their teams not doing anything.
That should be fun.
I'm curious about that. We got a good pool of teams, the Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets, all that. So we'll get into that. But let's start here, Wes Golberg. I think the best player probably moved today was Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons to the Knicks. The Pistons have been waiting for a couple years to trade him, and they've been holding out. They wanted 2 first-round picks. I remember the Mavs and the Pistons were in talks to make some kind of a move, and they kept wanting two first. They don't even get 1 first out of it. What did you think about what the Pistons did? And then let's get into the Knicks side of it.
Kind of continuing with a trend here where good players get traded for younger but not as good players, right? Like it's a new in vogue thing. We used to trade players for draft picks for fake players. Now we just trade players for other players. It's crazy. I don't know if the NBA ever
isn't that better though? Isn't that what trades were supposed to be? It's like not this fake cash of draft picks. It's at least like player for player. Here we are.
I think part of it too, and I think Bobby Marks tweeted this the other day, that 75% of first round picks are owed by not the teams that didn't originally have them. That I think is a big reason why we're starting to see these teams move players for players. And I like it so much more. The NBA is way more interesting when we get to talk about not how just one player trading to a new team fits with that new team, but 2 players moving. I mean, the Toronto New York deal from earlier in the year where it was quickly and RJ Barrett going and then OG Anunoby coming to New York. That is still endlessly fascinating in so many different ways. And I think we're starting to see stuff like that here. I actually like this trade for Detroit. I thought, screw the picks. You got your own picks. They're going to be bad enough. Like you kind of that's good. Just now you have those. Go get a good young player in Quentin Grimes who can fit with a lot of different kinds of players. He can play off the ball, be a good on-ball defender. He's young. You have him, Ivy, Cade Cunningham, a bunch of the Thompson twin. Like you got a bunch of guys there. I'm here for it. And I don't know. I don't really know. I don't have a pulse on the Pistons fan base that much, but if they wanted more draft capital, I just give me the good young player at the end of the day.
Well, and it didn't help that Bogdanovic had been hurt this year too. They just waited too long, and it feels like the Pistons, if we're going on their side, it feels like the Pistons have just like waited too long on everything that they've done so far. Like waited too long to do this, waited too long to do that, like waited too long to bottom out. It just seems like they're behind on all the things, and it can happen in today's NBA. It just moves so fast. Yeah. You've got to make decisions so fast. It's what the world is today. Like you've got to move fast, got to make quick decisions. Like you're on a dating app. like you have 24 hours after a person matches with you, like on Bumble, to talk to that person or never freaking see them again. You never see them again after that. And so like you have to make quick decisions now. And it feels like the Pistons have just held on a little bit too long, and you get a little bit too precious with some of your things. And this is what we're seeing the Bulls do. The Bulls will come up later in our power rankings. But like this is what we've seen the Bulls do, where they just hold on to guys too long, and then they're just going to lose them for nothing, or they're not going to get the right thing for them. I do like that they got Quentin Grimes out of this. Like you at least get a young player that can fit into what you want to do, can play with Jaden Ivey in a backcourt and Cade Cunningham. Like I feel like that could work out for him. And so, I don't want to bury the Pistons too much in all this because but like, it is what it is.
I'll push back on they waited too long thing, because let's say hypothetically they had traded Bojan last year to the Lakers, who were reportedly dangling a first-round pick. Would you rather have a late Lakers first-round pick or a 23-year-old Quentin Grimes? Maybe it's not. You're right. That's a good point. It could be. I don't know. I think it's a fair question though. Like a first-round pick from the Lakers, who. Like, I know that they're going to be post LeBron probably at that point, but they're still going to have Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is only 30 years old. Like, they're going to still have some stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, give me the young player. Maybe I'm too high on Quentin Grimes, but I still just like the idea of, all right, this guy doesn't really make sense for us anymore. Let's just repurpose this asset into something that does make sense. And let's just get the ball rolling on something here.
Bogdanovic for the Knicks, though, all of a sudden, with this OG Anunoby news that he's going to be out a couple weeks because of an elbow procedure. And you never want to hear like there's some loose things in any appendage or anything like that. Like that's not something you want to hear, but he'll be out for a couple of weeks. And so now they bring him in, and Bogdanovic is kind of the player they needed anyway. Just like one more scorer, creator, something like that, especially somebody with size. Like I think that's pretty good for them.
I love what the Knicks have done this entire season in terms of making mid-season trades. I like the team coming into the year. You add Anunoby, you add Bojan Bogdanovic, and then you get Alec Burks in this deal too, which is a sneaky good signing. That's a guy that can give you playoff minutes. Get him back, right? And a weird way that this was reported, it was like they're trading Quentin Grimes for Alec Burks, and I was like, that's a terrible trade. And they're like, and also Bojan's in it, and you're like, that was the main part of the trade. Like, I don't know that we've ever had a trade reported in that way, where the main part is reported after.
You're telling the guy that covers the Dallas Mavericks, where like the first trade reported was Daniel Gafford for draft compensation. And we were like, okay, we have a first in 2 seconds. And then it just went radio silent for forever. Right. And eventually they're like, they're getting the draft compensation from OKC. You're like, how? What are they sending? And then like 2 hours went by. 2 hours went by, and you're like, what was that draft compensation? And it turns out, we'll talk about it later, it was a pick swap. But yeah, the reporting trades in pieces was, as an NBA fan, very frustrating.
It felt like more of that at this deadline than ever. Yeah. I don't know how like Woj and Haynes and Shams and all these guys like kept track of it. Like, oh wait, I have to go back and figure out where this all came from. Credit to them. They all those people
Woj and Shams. It's just them. They're the two. Like they're the Tony Stark and the group. Like what's Chris Evans? What's Captain America's name? Steve Rogers.
You lost me. I'm sorry. I don't know the movies. I watched them. I don't understand them. I don't know I know Tony.
You don't
Stark's
understand them?
They're very okay. So I definitely missed some. This is an offline conversation that maybe you can help me out. But the Knicks.
Like I didn't understand Avengers.
So I really don't know what the difference is between all of them. I'm sorry. I don't know what Guardians of the Galaxy versus the Avengers.
One of them's in space.
Is that it? Is that the difference?
The Guardians are in space.
Okay. All right. Very good. One of them has a tree as a sidekick. I'm not.
They're the ones in space.
Okay, the tree is.
You don't see those on Earth.
You see how I'm confused now? Yeah. Going back to the Knicks.
Good thing you didn't watch Doctor Strange. That would have been a lot for you.
This whole day has been Doctor Strange.
No, it feels like a good move for the Knicks. We'll see what happens with them going forward.
They got OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Alec Burks this year without trading a first round pick. And it cost them some good young players. It cost them RJ Barrett. It cost them Quentin Grimes. It cost them these guys, Emmanuel Quickly. But they upgraded the roster, and they still remained a player this offseason because they have those first round picks. And the players they got back are under contract for several more years. They can use those players to maybe take that next step to that superstar if that superstar becomes available. And if not, no big deal, because the team's still really good now.
And the Knicks, very polite with the players that were leaving them. Like the players that are gone. Really nice. Thank you, Evan Graphic, for Evan Fournier, who now leaves the Knicks after being benched and never got to play. And then the owner.
Does he get a tribute video?
Yeah, Leon Rose, not the owner, the president, came out and said, "We'd like to extend our deepest thanks to Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan Arcidiacono for their contributions." Is there enough? Is there enough footage?
Why do we do this?
Was there enough footage for Evan Fournier to have a tribute video?
It's just gonna be him sitting on the bench demanding a trade, eating popcorn, be like, "Can I leave? I don't want to be here anymore." I don't look. I understand why these are made, and everybody has a job to do. And I'm not lobbying for anybody to get fired, but there's a department in every organization that's in charge of social media, and they're like, we have nothing to do on deadline day. We don't have podcasts to record. We don't have articles to write. We don't have trades to execute. We have Photoshops to make. That's right. And so you get like 3 people making these Photoshops, and they're in charge of the Twitter accounts, and that's why these exist. But it's ridiculous.
And they're all different departments too. So like for the Mavs, like sometimes the social, like people always try to look at the starting lineup graphic and go, what do they know? What do they know? This guy's starting, and then like they don't talk. Jason Kidd is not telling the Mavs social like who is starting and who is not. They're all different departments. Oh, so funny. All right, coming up, let's get into the Mavs trades. I thought the Mavs had a really good day. I want to get Wes's thoughts on that, and then Gordon Hayward, Buddy Hield, some other of those trades. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Nissan has you covered for all kinds of SUVs. If you want a car, but you want it to be bigger than a car and you want it to have the luxury of like a really nice big car, check out Nissan. You the kind of driver that likes to push things further, check out the Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. You got that Google built in, so you always have that assistant that you can call to for almost anything. It's almost like if you had understood the Marvel movies, Jarvis or Friday, that his Tony Stark's assistant.
I don't know.
The 2024 Rogue is
the glasses that he wears.
One's Friday. Yeah, you got that one right.
All right.
The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Check out also the Nissan Pathfinder, room for up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity. Advanced available 4x4 capability as well. 284 horsepower. That's something. 6,000 pounds of towings. If you need to tow the Hulk, I guess, is probably 6,000 pounds. The Pathfinder is there to help you with that answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada. Go to your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. That's NissanUSA.com. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA. Being an everydayer, listening every day. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every day. I host Locked On Mavericks. Wes hosts Locked On Heat.
Yes, sir.
All of us host a show daily on a team. How do you host a show daily about a basketball team? Come find out. All right, Wes, let's talk about what the Mavericks. Coming up with ideas on episodes is like one of the biggest things we get paid for.
Yeah, it wasn't hard today, though.
No, today's very easy, especially if you're a Mavericks host like I am. The Mavericks acquired PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. They essentially send out Grant Williams, Seth Curry, Rashawn Holmes. They send out a 2027 first, top 2 protected. They swap 2028 first-round picks with OKC to get a first to then send to the Wizards. And then they also get 2 second-round picks in this as well. My initial thoughts on the Mavericks side of this thing, I thought these were really good deals because you get 2 25-year-old guys. They're signed for a couple more years. They fill positions of need. The Mavericks are basically looking at the Grant Williams experiment and saying, you know what? That didn't work. It just didn't work for us. We had so many great hopes for it. Grant Williams said a lot of really nice things coming into the season, said a lot of things about how he's going to go basically from a 9th, 10th man on the Celtics to a 4th, 5th guy on the Mavericks. And none of them panned out. He shot like 60% from 3 to begin the season. And then since then has been shooting like 28% from 3. And his defense hasn't taken that step forward that they really needed it to. There's a lot of things. You could start blaming coach. You can start blaming front office and all that, but it just didn't work. They needed to upgrade at that spot. They need to get better at wings. They did it with PJ Washington. They get a backup center in Gafford who can help play behind Lively and play when he's out of games. I thought these were really good moves for the Mavericks. You paid for them, but at least they were good moves.
I love them. I love that Dallas is starting to figure out what it is that they need around Luka Doncic and to a lesser degree Kyrie Irving, right? And Rob Mahoney wrote this great piece for The Ringer a few days ago talking about how guys like Derrick Jones Jr. and Dante Exum, these guys have just sort of figured it out. This is where we are in the pecking order. And this is how I play off of somebody like Luka. This is how I play off of somebody like Kyrie. And I don't even necessarily blame Grant Williams for any of this. Sometimes the chemistry doesn't work. Sometimes the chemicals just don't mix. And sometimes the recipe doesn't work. And that's it. And I think he's a good player, and he's going to be a good player somewhere else now. But it just didn't work in Dallas. I think PJ Washington will work in Dallas. I love his ability to handle the ball. He's somebody that can kind of run some dribble handoffs for you, drive closeouts and things that Grant Williams couldn't really do. Things that like Derek Jones Jr. does. And that's been really
Derek Williams. That took me back.
Where did that come from?
Derek Williams,
Wildcats? Like, I don't even why. Why?
Derek Williams, wasn't he like he was the second pick in 2011? Yeah.
Jeez. Anyway, Derek Jones Jr. has been really effective kind of playing off of the attention that Luka and Kyrie draw. And I think PJ Washington can do a lot of that. And he's probably not going to put up the raw box score numbers that he did in Charlotte, but I think he's going to be more efficient. I think he's going to be much more impactful. And he actually was one of the few guys in Charlotte who was a serious basketball player this season, despite the losing. Like, he actually got better, where I feel like a lot of those other guys on that team maybe have regressed. And we're going to talk about another one who was serious, and Gordon Hayward, going to another team in here in a second. But I think it's a slam dunk move. You get a long-term answer there. And then the Gafford thing, that makes sense to me. You always need a rim rolling center around Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving, and now you can always have one.
Absolutely. I like these. You get 48 minutes of center play.
Exactly.
The Mavericks have not had 48 minutes of center play since Tyson Chandler. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The Mavs and Mavs fans have been starved for just give me a 7-footer that rebounds and blocks shots. And both of these guys rebound and block shots. They both foul a lot, so they're both going to struggle there. But if they both do, then you got the other one to help you out. Right. Lively's been out with some random injuries here and there. They've kind of been freak accidents. He got undercut by Scoot Henderson on one. He got hit in the face and he broke his nose, and so he's out right now. But like, Lively's been really good. Gafford's going to be a backup, but you could interchange both of those too, especially if you realize that one of them is better for certain matchups. Like, I don't think that's a problem, and I don't think it's going to mess with Lively's head either if you have to do that. And so I think this is great. I'm a little nervous about neither of these guys have been on good teams. Daniel Gafford's played in 5 playoff games for the Wizards in 2021, where they got beaten 5 games by the Sixers. Other than that, these guys haven't played in any playoff games, so I'm looking at that. But they're 25. You take this step, and then the Mavericks still have 2 first-round picks this summer around free agency that they'll have. They have Tim Hardaway Jr. will be an expiring contract. Maxi Kleber will have 2 years left. Like, you got a couple salaries and firsts to take another step forward, because this team's got to start contending, and I think it's got to start next year.
I think the scouting department did a good job too, because the same thing I said about PJ Washington being the one serious player on a deeply unserious team, you could say the same thing about Daniel Gafford, just surrounded by knuckleheads in Washington. But he cared. Like, he was a serious player on that team, and you can argue that he has even gotten better this year, where a lot of the players around him got noticeably worse. Thinking about one in particular, we don't need to go there, but like that, I think that Dallas has sort of figured out the kind of guys that they need, not just skills wise, but personality wise also around Luka, and I think both of these guys fit the bill.
Absolutely. Talking about another serious guy that was on an unserious team, Gordon Hayward gets traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, and then they send over some draft stuff. Did it end up being a first? I don't know if it did or not. Doesn't really matter. Thoughts on Gordon Hayward now going to the Thunder?
This is, to me, might be the most interesting deal of the deadline, because when you look at front offices in the NBA, they fit patterns of behavior, right? You can kind of expect, okay, they like these kinds of guys. They want to kind of do these certain things, right? The Danny Ainge type of deals, we always know what he's kind of looking for. We kind of already know he's what the Miami Heat are looking for. They don't even know that 1-for-1 deals like exist. It's always 3 and 4 team deals. That I think they don't know that you can just do 2 teams in a trade. So, like, you have behaviors. So when I see something that is a dramatic shift from the pre-established behavior of a front office, I'm taking note of that. And that's what happened here with the Oklahoma City Thunder. You mentioned sending out draft compensation. Whatever it ended up being, they sent out draft compensation. I don't know the last time Sam Presti did that for a win-now move. I think Sam Presti is a very good GM. I think he's a little bit overrated in terms of maybe being one of the best GMs in the league. To me, it's not that hard to trade good players for draft picks and just keep doing that for a lot of years. But congrats to him for building a career off of that. But he's a little bit like Eddie Van Halen to me. It's like, I know you can shred, but can you do the ballad? I don't know. This to me was this is a Jimmy Page moment for Sam Presti. This was going back to California. This was, hey, I could do it on acoustic also. I love this move. It was smart. It was the exact kind of player that the Oklahoma City Thunder have built their roster on and could have used more of. I think Gordon Hayward is somebody that can help them in a playoff run and a playoff series. And I think just adding one more guy like that can dramatically help this team. The thing about the Thunder is they have so many crayons for the coloring book, and they just added another one. They have so many answers. They have so many ways that they could beat you. And Gordon Hayward is still a very good basketball player. I'm glad they saved him from Charlotte. And like I said, he's a guy that can help you come off the bench in a playoff series. And he's an expiring contract, so you don't eat into any of your long-term flexibility. Nope. But I love that Presti's just like, because he honestly screwed up the Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook thing. We don't have to rehash that, but just a bunch of young players did not go out and get vets who can help that team grow and get better and just win games in the immediate term. And Gordon Hayward's going to help them do that. I think he learned from that lesson. He's doing that now. I think they could have used one more big guy. We'll see what happens on the buyout market or anything like that. But I love this move, and I think it's extremely interesting, and it signals to me that Presti is getting serious about winning right now and stops romanticizing all the draft picks and 12 years into the future.
Still reeling about your Jimmy Page Van Halen analogy. You just you one up to my Marvel one. Just like, I'm a much better, classier person than you.
I think more of our listeners understood yours than mine, though.
I don't know. I've seen our demo.
Yeah,
I've seen our age demo.
A lot of Zoso heads. Okay.
I like this because the Thunder get their cake and eat it too. They don't have to give up a lot of picks, but how long have people been saying, go get a vet, just go get somebody that can help these guys win, that can give them a little extra juice here and there. Gordon Hayward does that. It's a little risk, but they're already good right now. This is like only a low risk, high reward type move for them. So I like it for them, and it's fine for the Hornets. They get Trey Mann, who's kind of interesting, and Davis Bertans, I feel like will have a wild game throughout the rest of this season for no reason, and then that'll be it for that. Coming up, let's talk about the Buddy Hield trade real quick, and then we'll get into our power rankings of the teams whose fan bases were most disappointed today. We'll talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is go to Prize Picks, pick 2 to 6 players, and more or less on their projections for a stat. So you're not playing against a bunch of guys in their basements that are just coming up with all these ridiculous scenarios and all that. And right now they have the Demons and the Goblins. It's that time of year. I don't know what that means, but Prize Picks told me it's that time of year.
It is.
You pick the Demons and the Goblins. They have different kinds of odds. You can win up to 100 times your money on these. So, for example, for the Super Bowl, you can pick Christian McCaffrey, 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. So if you think he's going to get at least a touchdown doing anything, you pick that one. Pick more on that one. All right, let me find another one. Brock Purdy, 199.5 passing yards. That has a little goblin next to it. I'll pick more on that one.
Yeah.
I'll do Travis Kelce, 49.5 receiving yards. Got a little goblin next to him too. And then I'll do Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 passing yards. You think he's going to get at least 1 yard? Do you think Patrick Mahomes throws for a yard?
That can't be right.
It's right there. It's one of their specials, 99% off. That's a free space basically.
Yeah.
Do all 4 of those. If I put down $20, I can win 50. If I put down 10, I can win 25. You can, just play like that. You can add more stuff. You can combine sports as well. You don't have to just do the popular ones. You can do receptions, fantasy score, all kinds of stuff like that. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code, all lowercase, LockedOnNBA, to get your first deposit matched up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Wes, let's get into this Buddy Hield trade. I thought this was the other trade that was kind of interesting, a player that's actually like playable for some of these teams. Buddy Hield goes to the Sixers. Sixers going to be out Joel Embiid, but now you got Buddy Hield with Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, and they didn't move Tobias Harris either, and they only kind of added to this team. What was your thoughts on Buddy Hield to the Sixers now?
Best shooter in Philadelphia since JJ Redick, right? I mean, this is a guy who naturally spaces the floor next to Joel Embiid. I know Joel Embiid's out for at least the next 4 weeks, but I thought it was actually important for Philadelphia to go into this deadline and add a player, because if you think that Joel Embiid could come back and be even 80% of what he has been during this regular season, you have a chance. He's been that good. Yeah. And I think it makes sense to add somebody who can not only play with Joel Embiid, but also score some points and help float this offense while Joel Embiid is out, so they don't lose pace in the Eastern Conference, which is pretty stacked at the top right now. Buddy Hield's a good player. He obviously had kind of lost favor in Indianapolis. It was sort of like it felt like it should have worked with him and Halliburton, and it never really clicked. On paper, it felt like it should work, but it never really got there.
Yeah, it's like it clicked with them as friends off the court, but on the court, it just didn't.
There was no chemistry at all. And then Nembhard actually took his spot in the starting lineup a few days ago. And so, I think the writing was on the wall on this trade for a little bit, but I didn't see Philadelphia happening. And I thought it was a home run move for them. It makes a ton of sense. Expiring contract on Buddy Hield. So They retain the right to re-sign him because they have the bird rights going forward. So if that becomes their best free agent option, then they could just go ahead and do that, or not, or they could just let him walk. They still have max cap space, and they can go sign LeBron James or whoever this summer.
Yeah, they keep that flexibility. The Pacers were not going to re-sign Buddy Hield, so it makes sense on the Pacers side for them to at least get something for him. Do you know who has made the most threes over the last 5 years? It's a layup.
In the league?
Yeah.
Steph.
It's Buddy Hield.
Really? Over Steph?
It's Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield has made 1,240
Oh, Steph missed a whole season. That doesn't
Steph
count.
missed a bunch of time. Steph has made 1,121, and then Damian Lillard 1,020, Tatum 993, Donovan Mitchell 960. So like Buddy Hield made a ton of threes and will continue to make that. So now you add this elite type of shooting. I have the same concerns with Buddy Hield that I have with some of these other players. He's never played in the playoffs. He's been on the Kings. He was on the Kings for 6 years. He was on the Pelicans for like half a day, and then he was on the Pacers when they hadn't made the playoffs yet. And so I'm interested to see, especially his defense. When can they play him? How can they play him? Right. Yeah. In certain situations. Now you have Melton, you have Maxey. Like you don't necessarily have to play Buddy Hield. Like it's not like they got him and they're like, oh, we desperately need him to work.
I would hope they bring him off the bench. If they're
for sure
between him and Maxey, that's not a defense that defensively that's not going to hold up in the playoffs.
But how does it look when they do it at all? So I'm interested in that. I'm curious what they do with that. But overall, it seems like a good move. Now let's get into our power rankings of the fan bases that are most disappointed that their team essentially did nothing.
I'm not a system player. I am a system player.
Go power rankings. Go power rankings.
We both understand that reference.
I got that one. I was a child of the 90s. That's right. Okay, power rankings. Fan bases that were most disappointed in their teams not doing anything, essentially. The Warriors traded Corey Joseph for nothing, but we won't count that.
Okay.
We got a pool of teams, and you and I are going to go back and forth. Let's go. We'll basically draft these. So don't tell Adam Mares, but we're doing the power rankings in the wrong way.
So we're basically not doing power rankings. We just played the music.
No, we're power ranking. You pick the first one, the team the most, and I'll do the second one, and then we'll go back and forth.
It's a draft, but a draft of power rankings, a power ranking type draft. Okay.
A draft two. We're on the same team here.
Oh, we're trying to do this together. I see.
Drafting,
okay.
We're on the same team.
Don't
tell Adam. Don't tell Adam how bad that was. Don't tell Adam how bad that was.
I try not to talk to him.
Here's the pool: the Lakers, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Cavs, the Clippers, the Kings, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Magic, the Blazers, and the Pelicans. Essentially all did nothing, at least on deadline day or the couple days before deadline day. Who do you think, whose fan base is the most disappointed they did nothing today?
It has to be Chicago. That is the angstiest fan base on the planet. They hate when their front office does nothing. They hate when their front office does something. I'm not blaming them. It's not been awesome. This is a team and a fan base that was so deeply anxious for something to give. They just want some sort of direction, but it just feels like that fan base is just like they're on a boat in the middle of the ocean, staring at Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine contracts, and just they have nothing to do. And they're like, what? We have nothing to eat. We just have these contracts, and that's where the Bulls fans are. So I think they've got to be number one in terms of being most disappointed.
To me, they're not number one because. Really? They knew they were going to do this. How many times have I talked to Pat on Locked On NBA about, are they going to trade Zach LaVine? No, they're just going to stand pat. Are they going to trade Andre Drummond? I don't know. I think they're just going to stand and not do anything. Like they knew this, so I don't know that they're that disappointed, but they should be. They should be disappointed in their team that they didn't do anything.
That's a fair point. It's sort of just like it's just sort of a chronic disappointment.
Yeah,
if we're ranking it just like spikes of disappointment, maybe they're not at the top today.
You know, like when you're feeling anxious about something, you have that underlying anxiety all the time. I feel like that's what Bulls fans just have. Right. Their team. Number two then has to be the Lakers. They didn't do anything. Yeah. They were in talks with DeJounte Murray. Their fan base is prone to negative feelings towards things, and especially not doing anything, and especially not getting their way when the best player on the market doesn't come to their team. So they didn't get DeJounte Murray. They didn't do anything. They also have this whole thing the last couple of weeks where the front office has been saying listen, D'Angelo Russell, he's been really good the last couple of weeks. He's part of our future. And you're like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. We were supposed to get rid of D'Angelo Russell. We were supposed to move on from him, and they just didn't do it.
They literally signed him to trade him, right? They convinced him to waive the no trade clause part of his deal. And they have like all these chunky contracts. And I think a lot of people expected, if you go back to preseason, maybe it would have been Kyrie Irving, right? Like they had the salaries to build up to a Kyrie Irving if it didn't work out in Dallas, right? And it's okay. Well, it's not gonna be Kyrie, but maybe it'll be Zach LaVine. Okay, we can't quite talk our way into that. But like maybe DeJounte Murray, wow, he's available. And no, it's not. You know what? D'Angelo Russell's not that bad. And let's just keep him. And Austin Reeves forgot how to shoot threes, but that's okay. We trust him, even though he has absolutely almost zero sample size for his career. No, it's gotta be the Lakers. I have a take on the Lakers, but it's sort of bunched up with some other teams that I'm sure we're gonna talk about. So I'll wait for it.
All right, number 3.
I think number 3's got to be the Hawks.
Okay.
Not just because they didn't trade DeJounte Murray, but apparently everybody except for Trae Young and Jalen Johnson was available, and they didn't trade any of those players either. I think if you're the Hawks, if you're a Hawks fan now, you're like, all right, you can't even say like, hey, we've been playing really good lately, because you haven't. I don't really know. It's got for the Hawks. I don't know. I would just, as a fan, if I didn't have a direction, if I felt directionless, if I felt without a compass, I would be very frustrated, because that's a hard way to kind of go throughout the rest of the season. Atlanta's best case scenario is they end up going out in the play-in tournament. That's not a great place to be, considering where the expectations were. And I think they were one of those teams whose front offices were loudly talking about, we're making moves, baby. Time to shake it up. And then they didn't.
Number 4 for me has to be the Warriors. They didn't really do anything. Wiggins is still on the team. Chris Paul is still on the team. They didn't trade Clay, which I thought maybe they would dabble in or at least try. But now they take all this. They take that big salary cap number, and they're in a tough spot because there's no one coming back. There's no, we just wait for Draymond to come back from injury. We wait for Clay to get healthy. We wait for, this is it, man. This is the team. Warriors.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't go with the Warriors over the Hawks is because they were doing like the opposite sort of signaling over the last couple of weeks. Like, you know what? There's nothing really out there that we like. After Siakam got traded, there was nothing out there that they liked. And hey, Wiggins is kind of playing good with Kuminga and Draymond. So it's like, all right, good luck with that.
I think some Warriors fans just wanted to get rid of guys more than
they really did. If they just traded them for nothing, they'd have been like, that's great.
Like, at least we got rid of them. At least I don't have to watch them anymore.
Yeah, you get those cap space wins that annoy me.
Last one. The pool is the Nuggets, the Cavs, the Clippers, Kings, the Magic, the Blazers, and the Pelicans.
I'm gonna go Pelicans on this.
Okay.
Yeah, it felt like something, like they have a lot of redundancies on the roster. It felt like there could have been something out there that they apparently in talks to get DeJounte Murray earlier in this morning, late last night, and then those fell through pretty quickly. And so you kind of get your hopes up that they could do something, and then that kind of washes away real quick. So I'll go Pelicans. Yeah,
this is a team that just is in a weird spot. Their roster, some nights make sense, and some nights you look at it like, I don't understand this roster at all. And so you wish they could come up with something to like smooth it out, but this is where they are. They're probably not too disappointed because they can do some stuff, but there we go. Those are the 5 teams that fan bases are most disappointed. The Bulls, the Lakers, the Hawks, the Warriors, and the Pelicans. Let us know in the comment section if we messed up the order, because I'm sure you will. There you go. Check out all the Locked On shows. There's a link in the description to all of them. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA.
Thank you, Evan Fournier.
Boom.